2nd, 2023, and I'm here in the Dallas, Texas area on a sunny day. It is like 86 degrees, supposed to be around 90 degrees, and there is a light breeze, as you can see from the fern behind me. So hopefully you have a great weekend planned for your first weekend of the month of June for 2023. And I'm excited to. It's funny, I think about this. We get groceries probably on, well, it could be Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, but you think about that. It's like every week people go to get groceries because you eat what you buy, and it's like you do the same things over and over and over again. And sometimes you have, the service maybe brought to you. Sometimes you order it ahead of time. But isn't it interesting how food is something that people consume on a weekly basis? So we are going to be getting our weekly groceries later on today. So anyways, it's funny, in Texas too, we're becoming very acclimated to the area. And there are suburbs of Dallas and Fort Worth. Of course, it's a pretty massive area. I think it's like 35 miles apart between Dallas and Fort Worth, so it's a far distance. But the towns couldn't be any towns, I guess cities couldn't be any different between Dallas and Fort Worth. Dallas is much more metropolitan, much more I don't know, much less what Fort Worth. Fort Worth is more of a old time. They try to stay old time. Obviously, you can't. You have to stay in the 2023s. But there's a lot of old town, Western cattle driving things that are there in the Fort Worth area. So, anyways, today though is going to be a typical day for Dallas Fort Worth. 90 degrees, and here we are in the month of June. So, and humid. So anyway, Breakthrough Tour continues this Sunday. Sunday morning at 10 a.m. is the next Sunday service that I'm doing. I'm going to be talking about the life of Samson and the struggles that he ultimately succumbed to as far as lust, and how many people today struggle with sexual purity. And that's one of the areas that the Lord has had us focus on, is to try to get people to live a very godly, a very righteous life, including sexual purity in one's life. And that can be hard. It can be very hard when you're single. It can be hard when you're married to someone, if that person's not healed and delivered. And then you feel like you're being used, or you're being controlled, manipulated. And so it's an area that needs to be addressed. And we'll be talking about that Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time on Facebook, on YouTube, and on TikTok. And then next weekend, June the 10th, Saturday night at 7 o'clock, we will be in Dallas at the Courtyard in Plano, Texas, which is just pretty much north, but northeast of Dallas, Texas. So we had met there back in December, and I'll probably be meeting there on a regular basis, probably once every, 3 to 4 months, something like that, because it's a very simple place for us to get to, and it's very easy for people to attend there. So again, that's June the 10th, and you can register for that. We have a lot of people registered already on Eventbrite, and you can also go out to my Restored to Freedom page on Facebook and register for that. And then, let's see, June 25th, Worldwide Deliverance Session. That's a Sunday night on Facebook, on YouTube, and on TikTok. And then July the 2nd, we'll be in Round Rock, Texas at the Faith Culture Church. And they have a 9 a.m. service. They have an 11 a.m. service. And I'll be talking about soul wounds and getting healed from those soul wounds. And then going to be doing a corporate deliverance, or mass deliverance, however you want to call it, at 6 p.m. at the Faith Culture Church. So again, we've had a lot of people at our breakthrough events that have had huge breakthroughs. And it's as much as we want to pursue living a godly life. There's a lot of us that want to act and not get healed of those wounds completely, and then we end up sabotaging our own relationships, sabotaging our marriages, And that's a sad thing. But we have a free will, and we can choose if we want to be honest or if we want to blame everything on our spouse or others. So, topic of the day is your spouse adding to or relieving your stress? I just heard that yesterday in my spirit, and I was talking to Mindy about it, and I'm like, this is a good topic. We should talk about that. So that's what I'm talking about today is oftentimes you will know, and you have to be honest. Again, people that struggle more with the spirit of Jezebel aren't honest. That spirit will deceive them in blaming everything that causes strife on their spouse when it's really them. And so they can't see that. They will oftentimes, and I'm going to read off the characteristics of a person's, not healed, not delivered. What does that look like? They will tend to provoke and cause strife with their spouse, but then they won't see it. They'll get blinded by, a myriad of spirits, but they'll oftentimes blame everything on their spouse instead of looking in the mirror. And how I know a person's going to get healed or delivered is when they can humble themselves and they look in the mirror and they talk about themselves instead of trying to blame everything. Now there's a reality. There's a reality that can be, of course, manipulated by demonic spirits. If a person's under and operating in the spirit of Jezebel and the spirit of Leviathan, they will oftentimes accuse everything to the spouse, and then the spouse is simply trying to get along with them, but they can't because they are being the ones that are getting triggered. And so it kind of flips the script and so forth. So I'm going to read off. When you're not healed and you're not delivered, this is what your reality is going to look like to you. Again, it's going to cause you to think that you're innocent, that you're pure, that you don't do anything to provoke and cause any striving. But in reality, you will be the one that will tend to want to argue about a lot of things, strive about a lot of things, provoke the other person to anger. See this a lot, where other person wants to simply love, be loved, and get along, but then the person that operates in Jezebel will provoke the other person to anger. A lot of people say, well, it's 50%, 50-50 in every relationship, and I'm like, no, it's not. In many relationships, it could be 80-20, could be 90-10, as far as who's the one that's responsible for causing the striving and the arguing. And the people that tend to cause that tend to not see it in themselves. And those demons will blind them and cause them to blame everything on the spouse. And then they will go to other people and talk, and then they will come against the spouse instead of being honest and saying, you know what, I need some help. I keep triggering. It's amazing to me because I'll have people come to me for deliverance and they'll say, hey, listen, I want to be delivered of anything and everything. And in fact, I think that I have said some things and done some things that are really bad, and I want to change. And so they want to do it for themselves, and they're being honest, and I'm like, man, those people are going to get healed and delivered. And then those that tend not to, that want to blame everything else, then they tend not to. And I've seen it. Again, I've taken thousands of people through inner healing and deliverance sessions. So anyway, people that aren't healed or delivered will argue, they will strive, they will provoke, they're prideful. Oftentimes they don't see that. Again, it's how they treat the spouse behind closed doors. They're going to act really loving and kind and charismatic and like your best friend to all of everyone else outside of you, but the person that they tend to marry, they will treat in a very controlling and manipulative way that hurts them. And so they'll be prideful, very prideful. They'll mock, they'll have anger, they'll trigger, become a different personality. It's called an alternate personality, an alter. Well, they'll trigger because they're not healed from the wounds from their past. And then they will essentially sabotage their own relationships. And they won't even see it. They'll be blinded to see it. They have more fruit of the flesh than they do the spirit. But they're going to appear godly in front of church people. And so if they're going to church, they'll oftentimes appear to be very gentle, very loving, very kind. And everybody that knows them will say, oh my gosh, they're just so great. You're so lucky to be married to them. And that's what I heard when I was not. When I was going through horrible things and hell back in, 2009 to like 2015. It was awful. And I kept it a secret and kept it quiet because the Lord told me to. So I got the full brunt of Jezebel. And it was horrible. But then everybody that knew my ex-wife now would say, "Oh my gosh, you're so lucky to be married to her." I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'm real lucky." I play along with it and just say, "Oh my gosh, Lord, if they only knew how this relationship was. It was horrible. It really was. It was pretty bad. Having knives thrown at you, glasses thrown at you, getting yelled at every day for sometimes hours at a time. It was just miserable. It was horrible. But I had to go through that. That's a part of how you training, how you understand at a deep level how these demonic spirits treat people behind closed doors. If I had never gone through that, I wouldn't have never had this ministry. And that is the absolute truth. I wouldn't have known anything about this. So anyways, they have more fruit of the flesh. They'll appear godly in front of the church. They're mean. Their intentions of their heart are bad. It's not good. They'll be nice to others, but they'll be mean to their spouse. They oftentimes will compromise in other areas of their lives. So they may be watching things that have sexual explicitness to them or cursing, things like that are not godly. That's oftentimes will happen. They'll oftentimes listen to music that's ungodly with ungodly lyrics. And they are essentially the main cause of the stress, the instigator, but they can't see it in themselves. It's like that spirit, those spirits will blind them. They don't see anything in themselves, it's everybody else. So they're impatient. They don't like to be inconvenienced. They'll fight. They want to control the other person. Now, oftentimes they'll feel controlled when they're really not. Anything that the person would disagree with them on that they're married to, they'll feel like, oh my gosh, they're controlling me. And it's like, no, if they've got a valid reason, and it may be that the person's wanting them to, watch things that are not, godly, that would compromise their spiritual walk with the Lord. And if they say no to that, they're like, oh, you're controlling me. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm trying to live according to the Bible, and you're living like Jezebel. And Jezebel can be on a woman or a man, but they will fight. They want to control you, truly control you, make you do and submit to them and their demonic spirits. They're highly jealous of other people. They're not at peace. So if you have a working relationship with someone of the opposite sex, or you're talking to somebody from the church from the opposite sex, they'll oftentimes be hyper jealous and flip out on you, and you're like, what's wrong with you? It's like, I'm having a normal conversation with this person, but they are highly jealous because those demons are telling them that, they're getting ready to have a rendezvous or something, and they're like, no, I'm not. But the demons are convincing them that yes, you cannot trust them. So they're very jealous, they're paranoid, they're contentious, again, oftentimes sexually impure themselves, or deviant even. Oftentimes they can cuss. I saw that with back in 2009, where they would say the F word. And I'm like, really? Seriously? You are acting like a godly person? You're saying the F word? It's like, oh my gosh. Now we're seeing the real inside person, and it was true. And then people wouldn't believe it. They're like, oh no, they're so precious. And I'm like, well, guess I have to record it. So, again, they'll cuss, they'll curse, they're very selfish, they want their own way. Again, remember the interview I did with a couple from Iowa, and he said that the reason what told him that he knew that he had changed and was delivered was, instead of trying to manipulate other people to get them to do what he wanted selfishly, he wanted to do things for other people. And he's like, man, he goes, I saw the difference in my own life. I wasn't trying to see what I could get other people to do for me. I wanted to do things for other people. And that's true. You'll notice that. You won't be selfish anymore. And oftentimes they want to spend money only on their own desires. They're more selfish when it comes to money. Sometimes extremely selfish when it comes to that. They don't take responsibility for their behavior. They'll blame it, act like they're a victim. They're morally compromised. They'll lie. They're great actors or actresses, oftentimes gossiping and slandering to other people to turn those other people towards them to support them and then against their victim. They get other people to gang up, and they'll blame the spouse instead of looking in the mirror. So how do you know? Of course, if you're around those people and if you're married to them, they're going to create stress all the time, and you're not going to be able to have peace. It's going to be very exhausting to be around people that are like that, and they always say that they're takers. They're not givers. Those that are married to them are the givers, that want to give their time, give their money, and love on them. And then those that are selfish, they sabotage their own relationships, and that's true. So people that are healed and delivered are going to have more fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And I'm going to read about Galatians 5 and 16 through 26, how there's a difference between those that operate in the flesh and those that operate in the Spirit. So again, they're going to have a lot of love to give, joy, and peace. And if you're around a person that is not healed and delivered, they're never going to have peace. That's one big thing, is they're going to strive about everything. And it's going to wear you out. And you're going to be like, oh my gosh, wish I could have a peaceful hour. Just give me a couple hours a day of peace, please. And then you'll want to help people if you're healed and delivered. You're selfless. You're giving. You're kind. You're morally uncompromising. Those that are not healed, not delivered, are going to be morally compromised. Again, you're healed and delivered, you're going to be morally uncompromised. You're going to be responsible. You're going to watch shows that are more godly, listen to things that are more godly as far as music. You're going to be a gentle, spirited person. Oftentimes, you're going to spend money on your spouse and their desires, and you're more sacrificial. You're more tolerant, you're more patient. Your intentions of your heart are actually good, not bad. You have self-control, so you're not going to be triggering as often on the spouse that is more controlling. And it's hard if that spouse is provoking you, and they start to provoke. And again, I experienced this. It was like Satan himself was speaking through my ex-wife. And I remember thinking that, I'm like, why is she saying these horrible things? This is evil. And the Lord said, it's because there are demons that are giving her thoughts to say, and she's saying it. I'm like, wow, I would have never believed that a person could have so much anger and hatred. But then the Lord said, well, they're not healed, they're not delivered, they got hurt by their father, they're hurt by their mother, sexual violations. So I've got to have compassion. But it sure wasn't fun being around the triggering every day. So again, they're never going to have peace. That's a telltale sign of a person's not healed and delivered. They can't just be at peace, can't just be quiet. They got to spoil everything. So that's what those demons will do. So a person that's healed and delivered is going to be gentle, wanting to spend money on their spouse's desires. They're more tolerant, they're patient, tensions of their heart are good, they self-control, they're honest. They can be honest about things that they have said or done that are not good. And again, that's why it's interesting. People that operate more in the Jezebel spirit are great at lying, and they'll be a professional actor and actress when it comes to lying. And then the person they're married to normally either can't lie or won't lie. They refuse to do it, so they'll be honest with their own behavior. And when that happens, then the Jezebel will take advantage of that. And they will come up with a bunch of doozies all the time and lie to other people. So anyway, there's an honesty, there's a high integrity in the people that are healed and delivered. They want to serve people. That's true. They don't want to provoke the other person to anger. Oftentimes they're walking on eggshells because they're waiting for them to explode over something that's insignificant. That's again how you know you're not healed or delivered, is you overreact. You trigger to things that are really small, that are minor. And the people that are healed and delivered aren't jealous, and they're going to walk in sexual purity. So I'm going to read some scriptures here. It's interesting because I remember this first scripture here. I remember it. It says, it's Proverbs 21:9, better to dwell in a corner of a housetop than in a house shared with a contentious woman. And the same thing can be said about a contentious man. But I remember when I was in the same home as my ex-wife, it was really hard. I would sometimes have to go and stay in another room But even then, she would be outside the room and going on and on and on and on and on for maybe an hour, 2 hours. It was just horrible. So there's sometimes I just have to get away, and I would drive my car to like a park, and I would sleep in the back of my car. And I was thinking, this is ridiculous. It's like, why can't she just be at peace? Why does she trigger? And the Lord's like, well, because she was hurt and wounded, hasn't been delivered, hasn't been healed. And I'm like, well, this is nuts. I go, I can't get any sleep in the back of my car. I go, but it's much more peaceful there than it ever would be back home. So oftentimes that's what I'd have to do. And then there's other people that have done the same thing, or they've gone to stay with somebody else. But it literally, it makes you sick to your stomach. You have to walk on eggshells, and sometimes you have to sleep in your car. Remember one time I slept in the in our neighborhood. They had a swing set and play area, so I laid down there. And then there was a couple that came like at, I don't know, midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, some teenagers, and they saw me. They're like, oh, look at the poor homeless man. And I'm like, I'm not homeless. My house is like right down the street there. And I'm like, but I can't go there because I'll get yelled at, and it's ridiculous. So anyway, I had to walk through some things in order to understand how to do this ministry, and that it resonates with a decent percentage of people that have gone through as well. Other things about peace. John 16:33, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. 2 Thessalonians 3:16, how may the Lord of peace himself give you peace at all times in every way. The Lord be with you all. Isaiah 26:3, you keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you, because he trusts in you. Again, people that are not healed and delivered, their mind is tormented by demonic spirits, and they hear them like 12,000 thoughts a day or more. 80% of the thoughts are negative. So you can imagine they're going to trigger a lot. And you're never going to have peace, and they're not going to have peace. But their job is to try to make you miserable. And it's like you get tired of it after a while, and you got to get away. Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. John 14:27, peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. Romans 12:18, if possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Again, people that are tormented, demonic spirits, aren't healed or delivered, they can't live in peace. They're not in peace. I mean, they ruin everything. And it's because they're not healed and delivered. And you can love them, you can pray for them, you can fast for them, but they got a free will. And if they don't want to humble themselves to saying, I've got a problem, I need to get healed from this, and then pursue it with all their heart, then they're not going to get delivered. Their demons say it's better to just blame everything on the spouse instead of looking at the mirror, at themselves. And if they blame the spouse, then they'll never get delivered. There's a lot of people that would rather get divorced, truth be told, than to get delivered, because then they'd have to admit that, oh my gosh, the problem was me. The problem was I needed to get healed and delivered. They'd rather say, nope, it was all my spouse. And that's so true. Okay, Colossians 3:15, let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. Philippians 4:6-7, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So really, the number one thing that causes divorce is one person tends to want to go through and be healed and delivered, or maybe they're operating more in the Ahab spirit. And the other person that has Jezebel, it's really hard to get delivered from. They don't want to admit that maybe it's me. And they would rather sell a lie to other people and blame the spouse instead of looking in the mirror and saying, all right, I'm gonna be honest, yep, I need to work on myself. And I'm gonna do this for myself, not just to keep my spouse in marriage to me. I remember the couple that they went through a divorce. She got delivered and he did not. Well, then he decided to do this for himself, and He didn't have any expectations that his wife would come back, but he knew he needed to do it for himself. And then he did. He got healed and delivered. He started serving other people. And then they started talking. And then they got remarried. What a great testimony. Again, that's on my YouTube channel. So again, I see it all the time. Oftentimes people will go through a divorce and then blame the other person instead of saying, you know what, I need to do this for myself. I need to get healed and delivered. So Galatians 5:19 through 26, it does talk about those who aren't healed and delivered and those that are. Fruit of the flesh versus fruit of the spirit. Those that aren't healed and delivered are going to have a lot of fruit of the flesh. Now the works of the flesh are evident, which are adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lewdness. So it's sexual impurity. Looking at pornography, masturbating, lusting after other women or men. It goes both ways. Again, 50% of pastors look at pornography on a regular basis. 50%. It's awful. 75% of church-going men look at pornography. 33% of women look at pornography. And 94% of people have seen pornography by the time they're age 14. That's when it starts when you're kids. That's why I go back to get those wounds healed. First time they have those images, get delivered from that. Have it wiped free. So, adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lewdness. Then it goes on to idolatry. Again, idol worship is not, it can mean worshiping Baal, but more often it's worshiping things you put before God, such as money, the love of money. Could be your clothing, could be how you look, could be vanity, could be addictions that you have, addictions to sex, lust, porn, addictions to smoking, drinking alcohol, drugs, all the above. So, sorcery, which is witchcraft, which is trying to control another person, trying to make them do what you want. When you're healed and delivered, you don't want to make the person, listen, I'm going to make you love me. It's like, what? Is that God? I think not. No, not at all. God's like, hey, I'm here. If you want me, I would love to love you and have a relationship with you. That's a healthy relationship. And people that have to force and control another person, that's not who God is. And that's not how we should be. Why would you want to make a person love you? Wouldn't you rather them truly love you and want to be with you because you love them back? You know, again, people have to understand that if you're loving to a person, then they're going to typically want to love you back if they're healed and delivered. They may still need to get some more healing and deliverance, but it sure goes a long way when you're consistent in how you treat the person, that you don't have highs and lows, and you're not, cursing and looking at pornography and lusting and lying and all the above. So, okay, let me go on. Hatred. So if you've got hatred for somebody, that's kind of the opposite of love, and that's a fruit of the flesh. Contentions. So you're striving, fighting, arguing. Jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfishness, selfish ambitions, dissensions, heresies, envy, murders, drunkenness, revelries, which is partying, and the like, of which I tell you beforehand, just as I told you in times past, that those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. It could be a salvation issue. Of course it can. If you're allowing sin to dominate your life. So when you are healed and delivered, again, it's a process. It says the fruit of the Spirit you're going to have, which is love, joy, peace, long-suffering. A lot of people that have been in toxic relationships have long suffered. I know what that's like. A lot of people know what that's like. My wife knows what that's like. So when you're in a marriage with someone and they're constantly degrading you, putting you down, tearing you down, all they want from you is sex. And they don't want to treat you in a godly way. They don't want to love you like Christ. That's not good. So oftentimes people have tolerated a lot of things. And that's a stronger spiritual person if they can put up with that and tolerate that and try to love the person, hoping that they start to see some changes with them. Let me go on. Kindness. You're going to be kind to a person. When you're healed and delivered, you're going to say loving things to them. You're going to be kind to them. Goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such, there's no law. And those who are Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. So those who are truly Christ, Christians, are going to have the fruit of the Spirit. Absolutely. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, which is prideful, provoking one another, and envying one another. So again, ask yourself the question, is your spouse adding to or relieving your stress? You know, a person that's healed and delivered is going to try and go out of their way to do things for their spouse, to love on them, and to bring peace to them, and sacrifice for themselves. A person that's not healed and delivered are going to try to demand that their spouse do things for them, and that just ruins everything. That's not unconditional love. That's not what God does to us. So, all right, try and keep these to 30 minutes. Again, I have a book called Freedom from Soul Wounds and Demons. Lots of people are reading it, getting healed, getting delivered, life-changing experiences are happening. And you can get that on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and Audible. And if you want a personal session with me, I'm going to be doing a session here in 30 minutes with someone from Quebec, Canada. And again, I do about 10 sessions a week, and they're typically an hour, and we see tremendous life-changing breakthroughs in their lives. Getting healed and delivered is paramount. It's what's needed to happen. And a lot of those people then want to get certified with Restorative Freedom so they can help pass it on and get other people healed and delivered. So if you're interested in getting a session, then just email my assistant, Tina, at tina@restored2freedom.com. Or you can go out to Restored to Freedom website and just go to Contact Us and fill out the page there. So, all right, I will let you guys go. See you on Facebook and YouTube. All right, bye-bye.